The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had stood for 40,000 cycles. Its walls were made of crystal that sang when light touched them. 12 species had built this place together. They had ruled the galaxy in peace and order. They believed they knew everything about the stars. They were wrong. High Arbiter sat on her throne of woven light. Her skin was pale blue, and her 4 eyes watched the gathered ambassadors with ancient wisdom. She had led the council for 300 cycles. In all that time, nothing had surprised her. Until today. "This is impossible," said Ambassador Hal of the. His reptilian face showed deep concern. His scales had turned gray with stress. "Our scout fleet found them in the outer spiral arm, a system we marked as empty, a system called Sol." Sol, the hegemony representative, laughed. His massive frame shook with amusement. "That dead region, nothing lives there. Our probes checked it 10,000 cycles ago." "Your probes were wrong." Hal pressed a button on his console. A hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. "They call themselves humans. They evolved on the 3rd planet from their star, and they have achieved faster-than-light travel." Murmurs spread through the hall. A new species with FTL technology was rare but not unheard of. The Council had welcomed 17 species in the last 5,000 cycles. The process was simple. Find them, test them, show them the power of the Council, make them submit to the rules, add them to the family of civilized beings. "How primitive are their ships?" asked the ambassador. Her mechanical body hummed with curiosity. "Do they still use chemical rockets, plasma drives? We can offer them proper technology in exchange for their loyalty." Hal did not answer. His clawed hand trembled as he changed the hologram. A new image appeared. The hall fell silent. It was a ship, but it was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. The vessel was not elegant. It had no flowing curves or graceful lines. It was brutal, angular. It looked like a weapon given form. Massive armor plates covered its hull. Thousands of gun ports lined its sides. Its engines burned with blue fire that could be seen from 1,000,000 kilometers away. "What is the scale on this image?" On asked. Her voice was calm, but her 4 eyes had narrowed. "That is the problem, High Arbiter." Hal zoomed out the hologram, and then out again. And again, the ship kept getting smaller on the display as more space appeared around it. "This vessel is 47 kilometers long." Silence, complete and total silence. The largest ship in the Council fleet was the hegemony dreadnought Eternal Sovereignty. It was 2 kilometers long. It had taken 3 species working together for 50 cycles to build it. It was considered the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. This human ship was more than 20 times its size. "That cannot be correct," the hegemony representative said. His confidence was gone. "Your sensors must be damaged. No species builds ships that large. It would be wasteful, inefficient. There is no tactical reason for such size." "I agree with your logic," Hal said. "But the humans do not seem to care about our logic. They call this class of vessel a Titan and High Arbiter." He paused. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "They have hundreds of them." The hall erupted in chaos. Ambassadors shouted at each other. Some demanded immediate military action. Others called for retreat. The delegation argued with the hegemony. They began calculating survival odds. The crystal walls sang with the noise of panic. On raised her hand, silence returned. "How long have these humans had faster-than-light travel?" she asked. "Our intelligence suggests approximately 200 standard cycles." 200 cycles. The Council had needed 5,000 cycles to build their first dreadnought. These humans had built impossible giants in 200. "What do we know about their history?" Hal pulled up more data. "They are a violent species, High Arbiter. They spent most of their existence fighting each other. Wars over land, wars over resources, wars over ideas. They nearly destroyed themselves several times with nuclear weapons. They fought a 3rd global war just 150 cycles ago." "So they are savages," the hegemony representative said. "Dangerous savages with big ships. This makes them a threat that must be eliminated." "Perhaps," On said, "or perhaps there is another explanation." She studied the hologram of the Titan-class ship. It was ugly, it was brutal. But there was something else in its design, something she recognized. Fear. This was not a ship built for conquest. This was a ship built by a species that was afraid. A species that had learned, through countless wars, that the universe was dangerous. a species that had decided it would never be weak again. That kind of fear made species unpredictable, and unpredictable species were the most dangerous kind. "We will send a diplomatic mission," On announced. "A show of force, 200 of our finest warships. We will remind these humans that they are young, that we have ruled this galaxy for 40,000 cycles, that there are rules they must follow." "And if they refuse?" Hal asked. On did not answer immediately. She looked at the hologram one more time, at the massive ship that should not exist, at the weapon built by a species that had learned to survive through fire and blood. "Then we will learn what these Titans can do," she said, "and we will hope that our fleet is enough to stop them." The Council voted. The decision was unanimous. 200 ships would travel to the Sol system. They would make first contact. They would establish dominance. They would show humanity the power of 40,000 cycles of civilization. None of them understood what they were about to find. None of them knew that humanity had been waiting for this moment, watching the stars, tracking Council movements, preparing for the day when they would no longer be alone. And none of them suspected the truth that Admiral Wei, commander of the First Titan Fleet, had told her officers just that morning. "They will come soon. Let them see what we have built. Let them understand what we are, and let them decide if they want us as friends or enemies, because either way the galaxy is about to change forever." The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had stood for 40,000 cycles. It had seen empires rise and fall. It had survived wars and plagues and disasters beyond counting. But it had never faced anything like humanity. And deep in the void of space, 12 Titan-class vessels waited in the darkness, their crews ready, their weapons armed, their message clear. "We are here, and we are not afraid." Fleet Admiral X stood on the bridge of the Eternal Sovereignty and felt pride fill his chest. 200 warships flew in perfect formation behind him. Crystal hulls gleamed in the starlight. Elegant weapons hummed with power. This was the greatest fleet the Council had assembled in 10,000 cycles. These humans would learn their place. "Admiral, we are approaching the Sol system," his tactical officer reported, "detecting multiple signals from the inner planets." "How many ships?" "Unclear, sir. The readings are strange. Our sensors are having difficulty with the scale." X dismissed the concern with a wave of his massive hand. He was hegemony. His species had conquered 100 worlds before joining the Council. They did not worry about scale. They worried about victory. "Open a channel to the humans. Let them know the Galactic Council has arrived." The communication screen flickered. A face appeared. It was a human female. Her skin was brown. Her hair was black and cut short. Her eyes were dark and calm. She wore a uniform of deep blue with golden symbols on her shoulders. "This is Admiral Wei of the Terran Defense Force," she said. Her voice was steady. "Welcome to our solar system. How can we help you?" X felt a flash of anger. She spoke as if she were greeting visitors to her home, as if the 200 warships behind him were guests, not a show of force. "I am Fleet Admiral X, representative of the Galactic Council," he said. "Your species has been discovered. You have developed faster-than-light technology. This means you must now submit to Council authority. You will register your territory. You will limit your military. You will follow our laws." Admiral smiled. It was a small smile, polite, patient, the smile of someone who knew something he did not. "That is an interesting offer," she said. "But I think you should come closer before we discuss terms. Perhaps you would like to visit Earth, see what we have built. Then we can talk about limits." "Is that a threat?" "No, Admiral, it is an invitation. Please come see us. I think you will find the trip educational." The screen went dark. X growled. "Arrogant creatures, move the fleet forward. We will show them what Council power looks like." The 200 ships accelerated into the Sol system. They passed the outer planets, gas giants with colorful storms, ice worlds with frozen moons, nothing unusual, nothing impressive. Then they reached the fourth planet. The humans called it Mars. "Admiral," the tactical officer said. His voice had changed. It was higher now, afraid. "You need to see this." "What is it?" I do not have words, sir." X looked at the main screen. His pride died in an instant. It was behind Mars, waiting for them, a shape so large that it blocked the stars behind it, a ship that made his entire fleet look like insects. "The Colossus of Terra." 47 kilometers of black metal and burning engines. Gun ports that could swallow cruisers whole. Armor plates thicker than most buildings were tall. It hung in space like a sleeping god. That is not possible, X whispered. Sir, the tactical officer's voice was shaking now. There are more. More shapes emerged from behind the human colony world. 1, 2, 5, 8, 11 more Titan-class vessels, each one as large as the first, each one bristling with weapons that the sensors could not fully analyze. 12 ships, each one 20 times the size of his flagship. Together, they had more mass than his entire fleet combined. Sir, what are your orders? X could not speak. He had commanded fleets for 100 cycles. He had fought battles against pirates and rebels and hostile species. He had never felt fear like this. Because these were not just big ships. These were war machines built by a species that understood violence on a level the Council had never imagined. Every line of their design spoke of brutal purpose. Every weapon was meant to destroy. Every plate of armor was meant to survive. The Council built ships to be beautiful, elegant, efficient. The humans built ships to win. Admiral is hailing us, the communication officer said. Put her through. The human admiral appeared on screen again. She was on the bridge of the Colossus. Behind her, hundreds of crew members worked at stations that stretched into the distance. The bridge alone was larger than most Council ships. Welcome to the inner system, Admiral said. I see you have met our first Titan fleet. Impressive, yes. How? X struggled to find words. How did you build these? We had to. You see, Admiral, we learned something early in our history. The universe does not care about elegant solutions. The universe does not reward efficiency. The universe is dangerous, and the only way to survive is to be more dangerous. You cannot possibly crew ships this large. Each Titan carries 300,000 personnel. They are not just warships. They are mobile cities, mobile nations. If Earth were destroyed tomorrow, our species would survive in these ships. X felt cold. This was not just military thinking. This was survival thinking. The kind of thinking that came from a species that had stared into the abyss and refused to die. The Council demands. The Council demands nothing here, Admiral interrupted. Her voice was still calm, still patient, but there was steel beneath the words. You came here to intimidate us, to show us your power. Now you have seen ours, so let us start this conversation again as equals. We are not equals. The Council has ruled for 40,000 cycles. And in 200 cycles we have built this. Admiral gestured at the fleet around her. Imagine what we will build in 1,000 or 10,000. Admiral X, you have two choices. You can return to your council and tell them that humanity is a threat to be destroyed. You can try to gather your forces and attack us. She leaned forward, her dark eyes burned with quiet fire. Or you can tell them that humanity wants peace, that we have no interest in conquest, that we built these ships not to attack but to defend, and that perhaps, instead of enemies, we could be the greatest allies the galaxy has ever seen. Why should the Council trust you? Because if we wanted to destroy you, Admiral, your fleet would already be gone. You entered our system, you threatened us, and we invited you to talk. That should tell you everything about who we are. X looked at his tactical display. 200 Council ships, 12 human Titans. The numbers were meaningless. His fleet could not scratch the paint on those monsters. I will deliver your message to the Council, he said. Thank you, Admiral. Safe travels. The screen went dark. X turned to his crew. They were silent, afraid. The pride that had filled the ship was gone, replaced by something new, something the Council had not felt in 40,000 cycles. Uncertainty. Turn the fleet around, X ordered. We are going home. As they left the Sol system, X looked back one last time. The Titans were still there, watching, waiting. And he knew with absolute certainty that the galaxy would never be the same. High Arbiter On had lived for 500 cycles. She had visited 1,000 worlds. She had walked through the greatest monuments of a dozen civilizations. Nothing had prepared her for this moment. She stood in the hangar bay of the Colossus of Terra. It was so large that clouds formed near the ceiling. Actual clouds. Water vapor that gathered and drifted through the air of a space that could hold her entire flagship 3 times over. Welcome aboard, Admiral Way said. She walked beside On, her boots clicking on the metal floor. I apologize if the scale is overwhelming. We sometimes forget that other species build smaller. On said nothing. She was too busy starring. The hangar was filled with smaller craft. Shuttles, fighters, transport ships. Each one was larger than council vessels of the same type. Human engineers moved between them, checking systems, loading supplies. There were thousands of them, and this was just one hangar of dozens. How many people live on this ship? Ambassador Hal asked. His scales had turned pale. He had not recovered from the shock of seeing the Titan fleet. 312,000, Admiral said. We have residential districts, shopping areas, parks, schools for the children of crew members. The Colossus is designed for extended deployment. Years, if necessary. Decades, if required. Decades, On finally spoke. You built a ship that can operate independently for decades. We built a ship that can survive anything, Admiral corrected. If Earth falls, if our colonies burn, if everything we have ever built is destroyed, the Titans will continue. Our species will continue. That was the first requirement when we designed them. They walked through massive corridors. The walls were decorated with art, paintings of Earth, sculptures of human figures, quotes from human philosophers and leaders. This was not just a warship. This was a monument to human civilization. They passed a window that looked into a vast interior space. On stopped. She pressed her hand against the glass. It was a forest, a living forest inside the ship. Trees reached toward artificial sunlight. Birds flew between branches. A small river wound through the greenery. People walked on paths, laughing and talking. Oxygen production, Admiral explained. Also psychological health. Humans need green spaces. We need to see growing things. It helps us remember what we are fighting for. You have forests in your warships, Hal said. He sounded like he might faint. We have everything in our warships. Farms, factories, hospitals, universities. The Colossus can produce its own ammunition, grow its own food, train its own replacements. It needs nothing from the outside universe to function. On turn to Admiral. How is this possible? Your species discovered faster than light travel 200 cycles ago. We have had it for 40,000, and yet we have nothing like this. Admiral was quiet for a moment. They continued walking, passing through another section of the ship. This one was industrial. Massive machines worked on components for weapons. Robots carried materials. The heat was intense. May I be honest with you, High Arbiter? Please. When we discovered we were not alone in the universe, we studied you. We watched your communications. We learned about your council, your history, your wars, your technology. Admiral stopped walking. She turned to face on directly. And we noticed something strange. What did you notice? You stopped. Growing, advancing, pushing forward. Admiral gestured at the industrial complex around them. 40,000 cycles ago, your species were building things almost as impressive as what you have now. Almost. You reached a certain level of technology and then stopped. You decided you were advanced enough. You created rules about how big ships should be, how powerful weapons could be. You limited yourselves. Those rules exist for good reasons, Hal said. Stability, safety, peace. Perhaps, but we never knew those rules existed. We never knew there were limits we were supposed to follow, so we did not follow them. Admiral smiled. It was not a mocking smile. It was almost sad. We built what we needed to survive, and we needed to survive very badly. They reached the heart of the ship, a massive chamber filled with equipment that On could not identify. In the center was a sphere of perfect darkness. It pulled at her eyes. It felt wrong, heavy. What is that? She whispered. The primary power source, Admiral said. A captured singularity. A small black hole held in a magnetic field slowly feeding us energy. It will burn for 10,000 years before we need to replace it. Hal made a sound of terror. You have a black hole in your ship. How else would we power weapons strong enough to crack a moon? Silence. The diplomatic team stood in the presence of a force that could destroy worlds. It hummed with power that made On's bones vibrate. Why? She asked. Why did you build all of this? You had no enemies in space, no threats from the stars. Why did you prepare for war before you knew war was coming? Admiral looked at the captured singularity. Her expression changed. The confidence faded. For a moment, she looked like someone carrying a heavy burden. Because we knew something was out there, she said quietly. We found evidence, old signals, ancient warnings from the species that lived in this galaxy before you, before anyone. On felt ice in her blood. What warnings? They spoke of something coming, something that had destroyed them, something that was sleeping in the void between galaxies, waiting to wake and feed again. Admiral turned back to face them. We call it the Devourer Swarm. Your council knows about it too, I think. You have hidden the truth from younger species for thousands of cycles. The silence that followed was absolute. On wanted to deny it, wanted to say the humans were wrong, but she could not, because the swarm was real. The council had known about it for 30,000 cycles. They had built their civilization to hide from it, to pray it would never find them. And these humans had learned of the swarm and decided to fight. The Titans were not built to fight you, Admiral said. They were not built for conquest or glory. They were built because when the swarm comes, someone needs to stand in its way. Someone needs to be strong enough to face the darkness. She looked at the black hole that powered her ship. We decided that someone would be us. Hal spoke, his voice shaking. You would fight the swarm, the enemy that destroyed civilizations before the council even existed. We would rather die fighting than live hiding, Admiral said. That is who we are. That is what these ships represent, not our strength, High Arbiter, our refusal to surrender, our refusal to accept that some things cannot be fought. On looked at the human admiral. She saw the scars on her hands, the lines on her face, the weight in her eyes. This was a warrior, not the kind who sought glory, but the kind who carried duty like a stone around her neck. What do you want from the council? On asked. We want allies, Admiral said. The swarm is coming. We have seen the signs. It will be here within cycles, not centuries. We cannot fight it alone. No one can. But together with our Titans and your knowledge, with human determination and council wisdom, we might have a chance. And if we refuse? Admiral did not hesitate. Then we will fight alone, and we will probably lose, and after we fall, the swarm will come for you, and there will be no one left to stand in its way. On looked around the chamber, at the impossible technology, at the captured star that powered this mountain of metal, at the evidence of a species that had looked at the apocalypse and decided to build something big enough to punch it in the face. I need to speak with the council, she said. Of course, Admiral nodded. Take all the time you need, but High Arbiter, please hurry. The darkness is coming, and time is the one weapon even we cannot build. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never seen such chaos. Representatives shouted at each other. Some wept. Others sat in stunned silence, unable to process what they had heard. High Arbiter stood at the center of the storm. She had just finished her report. Every word, every detail, the size of the Titans, the technology inside them, the humans' knowledge of the swarm. Everything. This is a disaster, the hegemony representative bellowed. His massive fist slammed against his console. These humans know about the swarm. They know our greatest secret. They must be destroyed before they can use this information against us. Destroyed? The ambassador's mechanical voice was sharp with disbelief. Did you not hear the report? Their smallest Titan could destroy our entire home fleet. Their weapons are powered by captured black holes. They have been preparing for war while we have been sleeping. Then we must flee, the delegation leader said. His scales had not returned to their normal color. Leave this galaxy, find another home, start over somewhere the swarm and the humans cannot find us. Running is not an option. On raised her hand for silence. The swarm does not only exist in this galaxy, it moves between galaxies. It has been doing so for millions of cycles. There is nowhere to run that it will not eventually follow. Then what do you suggest? Hal asked. He had been quiet since their return. The visit to the Colossus had changed him. What options do we have? Before On could answer, a new voice spoke. You could listen. Everyone turned. A human had entered the Great Hall. She was tall, with pale skin and red hair that fell past her shoulders. She wore a formal suit of black and silver. She walked without fear through a room full of beings who could crush her with a single blow. Who are you? The hegemony representative demanded. How did you enter this chamber? My name is Ambassador Sarah Mitchell, the human said. I was invited by High Arbiter On. She sent a message after leaving the Colossus. She asked me to come and speak to the council directly. On nodded. I did. The council deserves to hear from humanity without filters, without my interpretation. Ambassador Mitchell, please say what you came to say. Mitchell walked to the center of the hall. She looked around at the gathered representatives. Ancient species. Powerful civilizations, rulers of a galaxy, and she showed no fear. "I know what you are thinking," she said. "You are thinking about the Titans, about our weapons, about what we could do to you if we chose. You are afraid." "We are not afraid of primitives," the hegemony representative said, but his voice was not as strong as before. "Yes, you are, and that is good. Fear can be useful. Fear can make you listen when you would otherwise ignore." Mitchell clasped her hands behind her back. "But I did not come here to make you more afraid. I came to offer hope." "Hopes," Hal leaned forward. "What hope can you offer?" "The swarm is coming. You have known this for 30,000 cycles. You have spent that time hiding, building your council, creating rules, pretending that if you were quiet enough, peaceful enough, small enough, the darkness would pass you by." Mitchell shook her head. "It will not. The swarm does not care about peace. It does not care about rules. It only knows hunger, and it is almost here." Murmurs rippled through the hall. Some representatives looked at each other. Others looked away. "We have detected its approach," Mitchell continued. "The outer spiral arm shows signs of swarm activity, worlds going dark, signals going silent. It is moving toward the heart of the galaxy, toward you, and it will arrive within one standard cycle." "One cycle?" The ambassador's lights flickered with alarm. "That is not enough time to prepare, not enough time to build defenses, not enough time for anything." "Not enough time for you," Mitchell agreed. "But we have been preparing for 200 cycles. Our Titans are ready, our weapons are charged, our people are trained." She looked around the hall. "We are ready to fight. The question is whether we fight alone or together." "Why would you fight for us?" the hegemony representative asked. "We threatened you, we sent a fleet to intimidate you, we demanded you submit to our authority." "Because the swarm does not care about politics." Mitchell's voice softened. "Because when the darkness comes, it will not ask whether you are council or human, hegemony, or it will consume everything. And because we believe that life, all life, is worth protecting." "Understood. What exactly are you proposing?" "An alliance, true partnership. You have knowledge we need, 40,000 cycles of scientific advancement. We have power you need, weapons that can actually hurt the swarm. Together, we can build a defense that neither of us could create alone." "And what do you want in return?" Hal asked. "No one offers such things without wanting something." Mitchell smiled. It was a sad smile. "We want a future. We want our children to grow up in a galaxy that is not ruled by fear. We want to look at the stars and see possibility instead of danger." She paused. "And we want partners who will stand beside us when the fighting starts. Not subjects, not servants, partners." The hall was silent. For a long moment no one spoke. Then the hegemony representative stood. His massive frame cast a shadow across the floor. He walked toward Mitchell. Each step was heavy, deliberate. He stopped in front of her, looking down at the small human who had dared to enter the seat of galactic power. "My people were warriors once," he said. "Before we joined the council, before we learned to hide, we conquered worlds, we fought enemies that would make most species flee in terror." He looked at his hands, hands that had not held a weapon in centuries. "We forgot what that felt like, what it meant to face something and refuse to run." He extended his hand, a gesture of respect, a gesture humans had taught the galaxy. "I will recommend my people join this alliance," he said. "Not because we have no choice, but because you have reminded us who we used to be." Mitchell took his hand. Her small fingers barely wrapped around his massive palm, but the grip was firm. One by one, other representatives stood. The small, quiet species that rarely spoke in council sessions. They all rose, they all nodded. On felt something she had not felt in centuries, hope. "The council will vote," she announced. "All in favor of forming an alliance with humanity against the devourer swarm." 12 lights turned green, unanimous. Mitchell looked around the hall. Her eyes were bright, not with victory, with relief. "Thank you," she said. "You have made the right choice. Now we have work to do. The swarm will not wait. We need to combine our fleets, share our technology, prepare our defenses." She took a deep breath. "We have one cycle to get ready for the greatest battle in galactic history." "One cycle," On repeated. "Can it be done?" Mitchell smiled again. This time it was not sad, this time it was fierce. "You have spent 40,000 cycles learning how to build. We have spent 200 cycles learning how to fight. Together we have everything we need." She looked toward the great windows of the hall, toward the stars beyond. "The swarm is coming, but when it arrives, it will find something it has never encountered before." "What is that?" A galaxy that decided to stop running. Mitchell turned back to the council. A galaxy that decided to fight back. The crystal walls sang as the representatives began to move. Plans were made. Orders were given. Ships were launched. The alliance had begun. And in the darkness between galaxies, the swarm continued its approach. Hungry, eternal, unstoppable. But for the first time in millions of cycles, something waited to meet it. Something that was not afraid. The outer rim burned. Admiral Wei stood on the bridge of the Colossus of Terra and watched the darkness come. The swarm filled the void like a living storm. Billions of creatures, ships made of flesh and metal twisted together, mouths that could swallow moons, eyes that had watched galaxies die. For 30 million cycles, nothing had stopped them. Today that would change. All ships report status, ordered. Her voice was calm, steady, the voice of someone who had accepted what was coming. First Titan fleet ready, came the reply. 12 Titans in formation. Council combined fleet ready, 600 warships standing by. Leviathan squadron ready. Looked at the tactical display. Behind the Titans, the 5 Leviathan-class vessels waited. Each one was over 100 kilometers long. Each one carried weapons that could crack planets. They were humanity's final answer. The last word in a conversation that had lasted 200 cycles. This is Admiral Wei to all ships, she said. Her words carried across 1,000 vessels. Human, Council, united. Today we face an enemy that has destroyed civilizations older than memory. An enemy that knows no mercy, no fear, no doubt. An enemy that has never lost. She paused. The swarm was closer now. Close enough to see individual creatures. Close enough to hear their screaming on every frequency. But today they face something new. Today they face us. Not Council alone, not humanity alone, but all of us together, every species, every world, every being that ever looked at the stars and dreamed of tomorrow. Drew a deep breath. Today we hold the line, not for territory, not for pride, for every child who will be born in the galaxy we save, for every life that will continue because we refuse to run. She raised her fist. All ships engage. The battle began. The swarm crashed against the fleet like a wave against rocks. Council ships fired their crystal weapons. Beams of light cut through the darkness. Creatures died by the thousands, but more came, always more. A cruiser was overwhelmed. Swarm creatures tore through its hull. The ship exploded in a flash of blue fire. Its crew died without a sound. Close the gap, ordered. Titan formation, advance. The Colossus moved forward. Its guns roared. Each shot killed hundreds of swarm creatures. Its armor held against attacks that would vaporize lesser ships. Around it, the other Titans formed a wall of metal and fire. The swarm hit them and broke. For the first time in 30 million cycles, the swarm was stopped. The Titans stood like mountains against the storm. Their weapons carved paths of destruction through the endless enemy. Their shields absorbed firepower that could burn worlds. But the swarm adapted. It always adapted. New creatures emerged, larger, stronger. They rammed the Titans with bodies that weighed more than battleships. They wrapped around hulls and began to tear at armor plating. Hull breach on decks 7 through 12, a damage control officer reported. Swarm creatures inside the ship. Seal those sections, ordered. Marines to defensive positions. Inside the Colossus, human soldiers fought against nightmares. The corridors that had once held forests and schools now ran with blood. Men and women died holding lines so others could escape. And still the Titans held. Admiral, the voice came from the Leviathan fury of Saul. We have located the swarm's central hive mind. It is coordinating the attack. If we destroy it, the swarm will lose direction. Where? Center of their formation, heavily protected. We cannot reach it with conventional weapons. Looked at the tactical display. The hive mind was surrounded by millions of creatures, a shell of living armor that no weapon could penetrate, no weapon except one. Prepare the primary cannon, she said, full power. Admiral, that will require us to move into the center of the swarm. The fury may not survive the approach. I know, closed her eyes. She thought of Earth, of the blue oceans and green forests, of children playing in parks and families gathering for meals, of everything humanity had built and dreamed and hoped for. She opened her eyes. Do it. The fury of Saul moved forward, 100 kilometers of metal and purpose. The swarm turned toward it. Millions of creatures attacked. They covered the Leviathan like insects on a carcass. They tore at its hull. They burned its systems. They killed its crew. The fury did not stop. Primary cannon charging, the weapons officer reported. 60%, 70, 80. The swarm hive mind sensed danger. It tried to move, tried to escape. But the fury was too close now, too fast, too determined. 90%, 95, full charge achieved. The captain of the Fury of Sol was a man named. He was 43 years old. He had a wife and 2 daughters on Earth. He would never see them again. He knew this. He accepted it. Fire, he said. The primary cannon activated. It channeled energy from a contained supernova reaction. It focused that energy through a directed gamma-ray burst. It fired a beam of pure destruction that could be seen from neighboring solar systems. The hive mind died. It screamed across 1,000 psychic frequencies. Its death cry echoed through the minds of every telepathic species in the galaxy. The pain was enormous, absolute, final. And then silence. The swarm stopped. Without the hive mind, the creatures lost direction. They attacked randomly. They fought each other. They scattered into the void. All ships advance, ordered. Push them back, destroy every last one. The fleet surged forward. Council ships, human ships, fighting together, dying together, winning together. It took 6 hours to finish the battle. 6 hours of constant fighting. 6 hours of death and fire and sacrifice. When it was over, the swarm was broken, not just defeated, destroyed. The creatures that had haunted the galaxy for 30 million cycles were gone. The Colossus of Terra was gone too. The damage was too great. The ship that had led humanity's defense for 200 cycles fell silent and dark. Its crew evacuated. Its systems failed. It drifted into the void, a monument to everything humanity had given. Admiral Wei was the last to leave. She stood on the dying bridge and looked at the stars one final time. "Thank you," she whispered to the ship, to the crew who had died, to the humans who had built something impossible because they refused to accept defeat. "Thank you for everything." Then she walked to the escape pod and let the Colossus go. 3 months later, the Galactic Council gathered for a special ceremony. A new seat had been added to the Great Hall. It was larger than the others. It was forged from the hull of the Colossus of Terra, recovered from the battlefield where it had fallen. High Arbiteron stood before the assembled species. Her 4 eyes were bright with emotion. "For 40,000 cycles, the Council has governed this galaxy," she said. "We have maintained peace, we have preserved order, we have hidden from the darkness and prayed it would not find us." She looked at the new seat, at the twisted metal that had once been humanity's greatest ship. "We were wrong." She turned to face Ambassador Sarah Mitchell, who stood at the entrance to the hall. "Humanity taught us something we had forgotten. That courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to face it. That strength is not measured in years, but in the willingness to sacrifice. That the true measure of a species is not what they build for themselves, but what they will give for others." On gestured to the new seat. "Humanity is welcomed as the 13th member of the Galactic Council, not as newcomers, not as juniors, as our equals and our protectors, as the species that stood in the darkness so that others might see the light." Mitchell walked forward. Every step echoed in the silent hall. She reached the seat and turned to face the assembled representatives. "We did not want this fight," she said. "We did not seek glory or power. We only wanted a future, a chance for our children to grow up without fear, a galaxy where hope was possible." She placed her hand on the seat made from her people's sacrifice. 60,000 humans died in the battle. The Fury of Sol and its crew gave everything. The Colossus and all who served on it are gone. She looked up, her eyes met On's. But they did not die for nothing. They died for this, for a galaxy united, for species that were strangers becoming allies, for the promise that when the darkness comes again, and it will come again, we will face it together. She sat down in the seat of humanity. "We were always protectors," she said. "We were just waiting for something worth protecting. Now we have found it, and we will never let it go." The crystal walls sang as the council rose in respect. 12 species stood for the 13th. Ancient civilizations honored the youngest among them. Outside, the stars shone bright. The galaxy was at peace. The swarm was gone, and somewhere in the void, new titans were being built. Because humanity knew the truth. The darkness always comes back, the universe is never safe, and the only way to survive is to be ready. Always ready. Always watching. Always human.